This is not the exact same as the problem that was on the test, but it's very close to it. So let me go through the details about it. So there are 4 things to do with this. Make sure you sign in by the door and get those papers. And you grab your own. So, cover that up. So you find the slope, and you need to use the slope for the point slope form and for the slope-intercept form. And then using the slope-intercept form, you get the standard form, which many people did well with that. Okay? But a lot of people had a problem with the point slope form. So let's start right off. Having done the slope, you should have gotten the number -2. 1 plus the 5 minus the negative is plus 5, and -2 minus 1. So you should have gotten a -2 for that. So the next thing to do is the point slope form. The problem here for probably about 2/3 of the people who took the test is you didn't remember it. So I need to give you a little bit of a talking to. Those who did remember it, cool, you're great with it, ignore this. But those people who didn't remember it, it's your job to remember the things a teacher tells you. When a teacher shows you something and tells you you need to know it, you need to memorize it. So I'm not mad at the people who didn't memorize it or forgot it on the test, but I am going to tell you that if you want to do well in any course, you better do what the teacher tells you, because you lost points for not doing it, and there's other things too on it. So sometimes you got to straight memorize something. You memorize a formula, you memorize a method, you just get it over with and just memorize it, and then come to the test ready for it. If you got a bunch of formulas you got to remember, as soon as you get the test, take the back of it or the corners of it or an extra piece of paper and write them all down so you don't have to think about them during the test. But make sure you come ready for them, because I'm going to expect you to know. If I show you something in class and I'll show you how to do something, I actually expect you to know. So when I showed you this one last month, I actually expected you to be able to remember it on the test, because you were going to see it, and you knew you were going to see it. It was not a surprise to any person whatsoever. You also had it in Math 8, by the way. Everybody did this in Math 8, so you already had seen it before. But when I tell you to know it, by doing it in class, you probably should know it. So those of you who didn't remember it, I'm not mad, but I'm sort of like, you knew better, so you deserve to get losing points there. So, it's your job as a student to actually do the things and memorize the things and practice the things that a teacher tells you. If you do that, you get an A. The people who got A's deserved it because they did those things. And so, so everyone else needs to do a little bit more of that memorizing and practicing. Probably need to do that in English and in history and in science as well. But in math, you certainly need to, and I know that here. Okay, so let's look at this one. And there's one error that I saw sometimes people make, so let's watch for it. This is the format for the point slope form, and it's called that because it has a slope and it has a point. This y1 and this x1. So the point would be x1 and y1, and that's just any one of the points up here. You can use either point. I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use 1 and -5 because it's one of those points, and I already know what the slope is because here's the slope. So it's going to be y minus this -5 equals -2, and it's x minus that x. However, this is still not quite correct. If you have a fraction of 4/8, you would never leave it that way. You would make that 1/2 to me, because you have to reduce it. And the same thing is true when you have a negative times a negative. A negative and a negative, that's like not reduced. That needs to be a plus. So never, ever, ever leave a negative negative. You have to make it plus. So this is not correct. This would be correct. So that would be the point slope form. If I did it with this one, I would get the same type of thing. In fact, there were 2 answers I accepted on the test for the problem that was like this. One of them used one point, and the other one used the other point, and they were both correct. So if I used this point, I would have had it y minus 1, and here I would have had x minus a negative, or rather x plus 2. And that would have been just as correct. Both of them would have been right. So on my answer key, I actually had both of those so that people could get either one of them and they would get credit. And for the 1/3 of the people in the class who did do it, they got credit for it. And the rest of the people still need to memorize the form when you're supposed to memorize it. Now let's look at the slope-intercept form. The slope-intercept form is the y equals mx plus b. And there's 2 ways to get to it. One of them is just work that out, and I'm going to do that here. The other way is to plug in the -2 And we need this b. So take one of the points and put the points in and we'll get the b. Either point, doesn't matter. I use this one, so I'll use it again. That's -2. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I get -3 is equal to b. So -2 plus 2 makes it 0 here. Plus 2 is -5 plus 2 is -3. So that means it's y equals -2x minus 3. Now I'm going to do it with this. I'm going to multiply that in. Oh, and by the way, the point slope form is this form. If you were to multiply this like I'm about to do, like let me multiply that as -2x, and then the -2 times the -1 is +2. Let me think about that. Negative here, negative and negative is positive, 2 times 1, yep, that looks good. Multiplying that out starts me towards getting this. But if I put that on the test saying it was point slope form, I'd be wrong. Because I'm not supposed to multiply that if it's in point slope form. It's only after that that I would do it. So sometimes people do that, don't do it. When you get this question again on a future test, make sure you're careful about it and remember it. So remember this that I'm telling you. Y equals -2x, -5 plus 2 is -3. Imagine that, they're the same. So therein is the slope-intercept form, either way that you were to do it. And for the standard form, I have to add 2x to both sides. And the standard form is x, then y, and on the other side is the constant, the number without the variable. And the coefficients for each of them have to all be whole numbers or integers. They cannot be fractions decimals. Check, that's good. And the first one only must be positive. The other ones can be negative, but this one can't be. And it's already positive, so I don't have to do anything. So that's the standard form. Okay. You're going to see this again, and again, and again, and again. So the next time you see it, I want you to get all 4 parts of it right. Get the slope correct. Get your negatives right for the slope. Know the point slope form format so you can plug the things in. It's just plugging it in. You plug in the slope, you plug in the y value, and maybe you have to do that, and you plug in the x. So just plug in. There's no actual calculations to do. You just plug in, but you need to know it. So next time, make sure you know it. And then you can work out the slope-intercept form. So you now have a good example for that. That's not the exact problem that was on the test, but it is a problem to do. Okay.